Hi, welcome to the MacIver Report. This is the MacIver Institute's staff podcast where we get to talk about issues that we ordinarily might not write about or do other reports on. A lot going on this week. We took last week off for Thanksgiving, so news didn't stop. The main thing we're going to be talking about right now is the housing crisis, specifically how it's playing out in Madison, because that's particularly interesting. Property taxes in Madison are probably the highest in the state. And we're going to talk about why that is, and also why housing costs so much in Madison right now, and around Wisconsin for that matter. I'm Bill Osmolsky. I'm the content director for the MacIver Institute, and I'm joined as always by
Michael Lucas, policy analyst.
Rebecca Drigger, intern here.
Fantastic. Glad we're all back again. Good Thanksgiving. Caught up already, so we'll just jump right into it. All right, Rebecca, you were looking at, just to give people an idea of how much it costs for a run-of-the-mill house in Madison, Wisconsin. We didn't put any addresses here because we just want to give you an idea of what type of house what you're gonna pay for what kind of house, and what you're gonna be paying in property taxes. So run us through your slideshow here real quick.
Yeah, so I found a couple of houses here, sort of the mill homes in Madison, and they range anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000, with property taxes about $5,000 to $6,000 a year, which is pretty high. So we have this first one here, $309,000 home value, but with property taxes at $5,379.
Yeah, we should mention too about all these homes. I take that back. We were trying to look specifically for like starter homes. So like homes that were like between about 750 square feet and 1,000 square feet. And one of the things we found was, first of all, there's only 5 homes that meet those criteria in all of Madison right now that are for sale. So, and we put down no price requirements. We just want to know, hey, just show, that's it. Show us what you got in Madison. There's 5 homes. So, I mean, that kind of shows you why people are struggling to find homes. And, when you got a home like this, you're kind of, some of these homes aren't all that hot. So, I mean, you're what is your options when you live in a house like this? And these homes aren't for sale, by the way. We just grabbed, random homes from Madison to show you kind of what your money is worth and what your property tax is going to be. And I mean, geez, that one you found, Rebecca, $370,000. It doesn't look like it has like a little patch of yard. Mm-hmm. You can't even see the home because the garage is up front.
Yeah.
$6,200 a year in property taxes. That is wild.
Yeah, for what you get, definitely.
Yeah. All right, so that's what. So little bit of context there for the housing for home buy, for trying to buy a home in Madison. Oh yeah. So right now the median value for a home is about $360,000. And $6,500, and your property taxes on $360 is $6,500 in property taxes a year. Rent. This is the other big problem. The Madison media is all over this. Right now in the Madison media, they're reporting that renters are struggling. The median rent is $1,465 a month, and that eats up more than 30% of the median household income in the city, which means that is unaffordable for most people who live in Madison. So, real quick, just for rent. I mean, Rebecca, you live in the dorms, you said?
Yeah, I'm living in dorms right now.
What are you and you're looking for an apartment right now? So, what are you looking at in terms of paying for an apartment for next year?
Well, I'm definitely going to be rooming with some people, but it's insane. For a 2-bedroom apartment, it's anywhere from $17,000 a month. $1,700 a month to $3,000, depending on what you're looking at, especially around the campus area.
Yeah, because you got the higher demand. And,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's rough.
Okay. So, we're going to talk a little bit about, or we're actually going to go into depth on why housing is so expensive in Madison, why rent is so expensive in Madison. The most immediate cause is referendums. Madison voters have never, seen a referendum that they didn't like. They just passed 3 of them here in the fall. They approved a total of $629 million in property tax increases. 3 referendums, 2 were from the school district. They were worth a combined $607 million. And then the city had an operating one that was for $22 million. All of them were approved, as I said. As a consequence, the average homeowner's property tax bill will increase almost $1,600 a year. School referendums, it was $507 to issue debt. So anyone that's ever taken out a mortgage knows that when you take out a $507 million, if you were to take out a $507 million mortgage, you're going to end up paying a lot more than the $507 million back. And then also $100 million in additional annual operating revenue. So whereas the $507 million is going to be payments for the next couple of decades, the $100 million, that's every single year that's coming out of property taxes. City referendum, $22 million every single year forever. Property taxes now increased by $19 a month for the average Madison home. So, we aren't technically in a recession, but times are tough. Inflation's out of control. People are struggling to make ends meet. When it comes to referendums, hey, you voted for it.
Yeah.
That's democracy in action. So good for you. But there's a lot of other things that are playing into this housing crisis too. Mike, you have looked extensively into how zoning requirements impact the cost of housing. So could you just kind of first, explain to people what you mean by zoning and who controls it and what, why that impacts the housing market?
Yeah, zoning is a series of regulations placed on land, and in the broadest terms, you have different zones: residential, commercial, industrial, conservation parks, public lands, wetlands, and all of these different things. Generally, what they do is they say they classify the kind of land that it is, but then they also say what it is that you can do with that land. So if you have a piece of land that is zoned as residential, then that land can only be used for residential purposes. In commercial zones, you can only have buildings whose purpose is for commercial purposes.
It's central planning.
It's central planning. This is done, if you look just at Wisconsin as a whole, most of the land is zoned according to the county zoning ordinances. But
So this is done at the county board of supervisors are the ones that approve most zoning plans.
Yeah, so the county zoning board is the one who sets up the rules as to how land can be used in 80% of the land in Wisconsin. The other 20% is decided by local zoning authorities at municipalities. So typically big cities and other large villages or towns that adopt their own zoning ordinances.
So real quick, this is not the state government that does this. This is a local decision, whether at the county level or the city level, which is also going to explain a little bit why you're going to have different impacts throughout the state. And every state is different, obviously.
And every state's different, yeah. What applies here in Madison doesn't apply necessarily in Dane County, and certainly doesn't apply in Wisconsin, and furthermore, Texas or California. So it's different wherever you go. It tends to be pretty similar in a lot of the main important things. But big picture view is that this is central planning. It's done by the zoning authority. And what they do is they typically set aside 30% of the land in their territory, in their municipality, for housing, and X amount for commercial, and X amount for industrial, and some, 1% is a historic district, right? those different zones come with very different land use and lot regulations. And it's those in particular that are most responsible for housing prices, property prices, and so on.
Yeah, and Wisconsinites, we love our governments, so, and our central plans, so there's a lot in Wisconsin, which this also kind of helps to explain the differences between, like Wisconsin's housing prices. I mean, they're high all over the country, but Wisconsin really stands out right now.
It does, yeah. When I went on Vicky's show a few months ago when I first did this report, one of the questions she asked is, why is Wisconsin so expensive? And the answer is really simple. It's because Wisconsin was so cheap to begin with. Everywhere else got really expensive, Florida, California, New York, every state along the coast. And the Midwest was super well known for having cheap housing prices. So you had this huge influx of people coming to the Midwest, which historically has not been very densely populated. We have less than 6 million people in Wisconsin, and all of a sudden you get just another 100, 200,000 people who move here over the course of 5 years. That puts a bunch of upward pressure on housing here. So it's only now that we're starting to experience the effects of zoning.
So, yeah, so you got some charts here. So let's talk about Madison. So what did you see when you started going? Madison's always crying about their housing crisis, which is why we're talking about them today. So what did you see? What does this zoning map of Madison tell you?
So this map is put out by Dane County. It's called a GIS map, and what it allows you to do is it allows you to look at the entire county of Dane, and you can look at every single parcel of land within the county. You can see where it's located, you can see how big it is, you can see who owns it, you can look at the physical address, you can look at the property tax burden, and you can look at the assessed value of the parcel. The colors that are overlaid on this are the different zones that are imposed or instituted, administered by the city of Madison alone. So this is just looking at the different zones within Madison. And within Madison, there are the two big ones here. So green and lighter shades of green, those are conservation zones or parks and public lands. Okay, so if it's green, what that means is you can't build anything on it. Okay. If it's a park, it's a nature walk, bike trails at most, maybe a bathroom or two, depending on how big the park is. Otherwise, you're talking about a swing set and a playground, maybe a sandbox. Just eyeballing it here, that looks to be about 10 to 20% of the land in Madison. Okay, so you just decrease the supply of available land by 10 to 20%. Then there's the yellow. So dark yellow and lighter shades of yellow, those are zones for single-family housing. Within those zones, you can build housing, but it has to be single-family, and typically it has to be single-family detached. What that means is this is your typical, ideal house that everyone wants in America, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, front yard, backyard, white picket fence, 2.1 kids and a dog. Okay, eyeballing that, in terms of, and I'm still working on doing these stats. My computer wasn't quick enough in calculating this stuff. But if you were to look at all of the residential area in the city of Madison and figure out what proportion of that is just for single-family homes, it's probably 50% at least. Okay, what does that mean? That means that you're excluding apartments. You're excluding condominiums, triplexes, quadplexes. You're excluding that medium density and high density housing that is absolutely necessary to help bring down housing costs, especially rent costs in the city of Madison, that you cannot do because so much of the land is unavailable. You're not allowed to develop on it. That's the green areas. The rest is zoned as industrial. You can't have houses in industrial zones. Can't have houses in commercial zones, which is going to be the pink and the purple. The blue is the college, which is a good chunk of the city.
Yeah, I mean, you start eliminating entire space real fast.
You have constrained the amount of available land that you can actually build residences on, and by coding it in yellow, you are further constraining what kind of housing you can build there. The problem of the fundamental problem with the housing crisis is a lack of supply. If you only allow single-family housing, that changes nothing in Madison or any of Dane or any of Wisconsin or anywhere in the United States. We already have single-family houses. It's not enough.
Yeah.
And that's because of the lot regulations that come along with this, which is on the next slide, if we look at that. So this zone is called SRC1. Okay, so this is single-family residence, and then C1. There are 14 different residential zones administered in Madison. So here's SRC1. This is the most common single-family residence zone that they do, and right here is a list of the different lot regulations. So the first one is lot area. You have to have single-family homes in this zone only. You're not allowed to do non-residential unless you get permission from the zoning board. So if you see this zone, it's going to have a single-family house on it. If you have a single-family house in this zone, your lot needs to be at least 8,000 square feet. The typical home in Wisconsin is 1,700 square feet.
Oh, wow.
You could fit 2 more houses on that,
Yeah.
but you're not allowed to because of the lot regulations that correspond with the zones. Second thing, front yard setback. Single-family homes have to be at least 30 feet from the street. So how much land is that you're not able to build? How many people spend hours and hours a week in their front yards? For me, my front yard was the thing that my dad paid me $5 to mow every week. We never spent any time out there. Why would you want your kids playing by the street? But you have to have a front yard.
Different generations, but yeah, you're right. Kids don't play. You never see kids playing outside anymore.
Right? But you have to have a front yard. Maybe some people don't want a front yard. They'd rather have that patch of grass in the backyard. Bigger backyard sounds better to me. More room to play catch. More room to run around with the dog. Right? Can't do that in the front yard. It's not an enclosed space. Whatever. I don't have this highlighted, but you'll see maximum height, 2 stories or 35 feet. You can't build higher than 35 feet. 2 stories is 35 feet. Can't build 3, can't build 4. Well, if you can double the maximum height that a building is allowed to be, you double the amount of residences. You double the amount of people that you can house. And if you were to double that, you could actually reduce the amount of residential land that you use by 50%. Because you've built upwards instead of outwards. And what does that mean? That means less concrete on the ground. That means more of the nature we all love. More grass, more trees, more fishes. And then the last one that I have highlighted is maximum lot coverage. This is a doozy. 50%. Whatever lot you have, if it's 8,000 square feet, 10, 15, 20,000 square feet, you can't build on more than 50% of it. By default, according to the zoning authority, half of it has to be grass because they love grass.
Okay, I've been a homeowner for a while. I never realized that there was actually requirements
Yes.
for how much grass that you could have.
There are even restrictions on the kind of foliage that you can have.
Wow, is this common or is this like
this
Madison?
is common?
Oh,
no,
wow.
this. I saw this when I was doing my study of Lake Geneva and Burlington and a couple of municipalities surrounding Geneva Lake. All of them had this.
Wow.
All of them had this. Everyone has minimum lot size requirements. Everyone has front setbacks, rear setbacks, side setbacks, maximum building heights, minimum frontage requirements, minimum lot widths. Every parcel of land has to be a rectangle. It all has to be a grid. That's what all of this is about. You need to have ticky-tacky boxes surrounded by grass because that's the American dream. But it's all like this.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
All right, what do we got on this next chart?
So this next one, okay, so this is just a look at Madison, the number of active listings, so the number of houses that are actually for sale in the city of Madison, and this is as of October, okay, so that's not this month, this is two months ago. So you got 1,000 houses listed for sale in Madison. That's the blue line. The red line is the median listing price per square foot. $230 per square foot for a house in Madison. Okay, on the next slide. Median listing price in Wisconsin as a whole, $380,000 right now. So,
Let's see. Okay.
Now, data was not available for Madison, just, looking at Fred, but
Yeah.
you told us what that is, right? 360,000. So, so this is more or less the situation in Madison, $380,000 for a house. And you saw the prices for the houses at the beginning. Those things were 1,000 square feet or less, and they're selling for prices like this in Madison. Outrageous. Next slide. It's this red dashed line. So this is showing the percentage increase in the cost of houses in Wisconsin as a whole since January of 2020. So since January of 2020, cost of houses in Wisconsin has increased 58%. Just 4 years. 58% higher. Now, have your wages increased 58%? No. Your wages have decreased by about 1 or 2%
Well,
in
yeah,
inflation-adjusted
if you look at
terms.
inflation. Yeah, a lot more than that, actually.
Okay. So good luck affording a house. On the next slide, you have home ownership rate for Wisconsin. This goes back to mid-1980s. We see it peaks at a little above 73% in 2004. What was happening in 2004? Beginning of the housing boom created by yours truly, the federal government, and then it plummets, right? You get the recession in 2008, you get the recession in 2020, and then the home ownership rate starts to recover after lockdowns end, and we're sitting at around 70% home ownership.
Right, that's wild because we haven't gone and destroyed a bunch of homes. What happened to them? Is it all owned by landlords?
Well, that's what typically people on the left say is they say,
Yeah.
oh, these hedge funds or these investment banks, BlackRock, are buying up single-family homes
Sure.
or whatever, and this is such a big deal because other people need those. People can't afford single-family homes right now.
Yeah.
Of course, BlackRock is buying up or whatever
Well,
it is. I don't remember
I know,
who it is, but
of
course they're buying these up because we've constricted the supply so much that they'd be stupid not to buy them up.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they? Right? We're not allowing apartments to be built, right? So people can't rent, right? So if someone's in their 30s trying to get a starter home, they don't have any choice but to buy a $400,000 home that was built in 1925.
Yeah.
For 1,000 square feet or less.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're starting to hit the wall. We've hit the wall. Some cities have hit the wall a long time ago. New York City, for example, was awful. Houston hit the wall a long time ago, and they actually rezoned their zoning code. And they changed minimum lot sizes. Now, Houston is the cheapest city to live in the United States, more or less. Far below the national average for big cities. But they reduced their minimum lot size requirement to, I think, 1,400 square feet. And what did people start doing? They started building townhouses, and all of them sold. And they sold at a price that was 15 to 20% lower than was typical for other houses in Houston in that time. So home ownership dropping off, not really a surprise to me. More people, fewer houses per person. And then the next slide, just this looks at the burden of owning a home in Wisconsin. So you take the typical home price and you divide it by the typical household income, you get your housing expense ratio. Right now, well, this is a year ago, 2023, typical home costs 4.5 times, almost 4.6 times the typical household income. That's everyone in a household that earns an income. That's mom who works part-time, that's dad who works full-time. Both of them together, if they want to buy a house, it's going to cost 4.5 times their annual salary. And that's not even including interest.
Well,
That's not including the mortgage payment. That's just the sticker price of the home.
All right, so I'm a bit of a history buff, and you and I have talked about this. We think about the end of the turn of the 20th century, the end of the 19th century. Everyone was so poor and just working all the time.
Yeah.
I came across a figure that just I love it. In Milwaukee, Wisconsin, back in the 1880s, the unskilled, fresh off the boat immigrant who can't speak English, they're going to be making about $1 a day.
Yep.
Working 6 days a week. So the average, you could buy a new home in Milwaukee back then for $700. So you're talking about for like, minimum wage workers essentially back then, 2 years pay. We're at 4.5 for the entire family income there, and these are minimum wage workers.
No, not at all. These are people with degrees who have 10, 15, 20 years of experience in their field, right? They're prime age working men and women who are, earning the most income that they will ever earn in their lives, and it's abysmal.
Yeah.
In 1980, the housing expense ratio was 3.3. In 1960, it was, I don't even know.
It just keeps getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
I mean, because skilled workers in the, in the 1880s, the 19th century. I mean, if you're a lumberjack in Wisconsin and you got the dangerous jobs, I mean, you're making $80 a month.
Mm-hmm.
A house is $700.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we are not progressing when it comes to putting people in homes in this country.
No, and it's because we just have this we know who we is. That's the government and the central planners inside of City Hall. We just have this romantic attachment to what we want everyone to have. But Thomas Sowell says life doesn't ask you what you want, it presents you with choices. Okay? You don't get to choose with everyone living in a single family home or everyone, living in the gutter. You get to choose between having single family homes and a lot of homelessness, or having single family homes and mid-rise, high-rise, medium, high-density housing, lots of apartments, accessory dwelling units, and no homelessness.
Yeah.
But people think that they can say only single family homes and therefore everyone will have a home. That's not the case.
And it's the government's decision, and here in Wisconsin, I mean, it's one of those areas of research that we keep looking at. But I mean, when the government's pouring hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to create affordable housing, yet housing costs still keep going up, I mean, there's a perception that you're making the problem worse, not better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you could be sure that they're overpaying for these projects that they're commissioning. Mm-hmm. That's a guarantee. So whatever you paid in taxes and whatever value you receive in the form of this new affordable housing they're providing is on net balance a cost to you. You are not getting your money's worth.
It's open for all kinds of corruption too. I mean, this is a great area for research for people out there trying to figure out why housing's so expensive. But when the government builds a new apartment building, the government doesn't become the landlord at the end of it. Some company becomes the landlord at the end of it. Some private interest is benefiting from that government expense. So
yep, this is a what they call a public-private partnership. The triple P threat. Triple threat.
So we taxpayers pay to build the building, and then some landlord gets to collect all the rent checks.
Yeah, and when you look at these housing initiatives that they do, like what you have listed here, 400 new affordable rental units per year. That's nothing.
Yeah.
400? That's nothing.
Well, we'll get into that in a minute. But you were talking about while we're on the topic of the government kind of sticking their hands in this and saying who should have what and who deserves what. In the federal government, Doge everyone's talking about Doge, and I've heard like Vicki McKenna, she was railing against the Department of Housing and Urban Development recently. Mm-hmm. I think HUD has a lot to do with at least the rental expenses in places like Madison. So HUD determines the fair market rent for every city in the country, and based off of what they say the rent is, whatever they say the fair market rent is what they are willing to pay landlords through the Housing Choice Voucher Program. So in Madison, Wisconsin, right now, 2024, the fair market rent, according to the federal government, is $1,182 a month for a one-bedroom apartment in Madison. That is what the federal government is willing to pay for somebody in this program. If you're a landlord, you'd be out of your mind to charge any less than that because you are guaranteed that income from the federal government. If HUD were to go away, or if at least the Housing Choice Voucher Program were to go away, people would scream bloody murder. Oh my gosh, you're throwing all these people on the street. You would see rents across the country just plummet because suddenly you are no longer competing with the federal government. Like, Rebecca, you're trying to find an apartment, you're competing with the federal government for that apartment, is what this is doing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you can't. You can't win.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a price floor. This is just a price control.
Yep.
You're excluding, you're preventing the price of one bedroom, rental units in this case, from falling below $1,182.
Yeah.
So what happens when you place a price control on something? You either get a shortage or a surplus. In this case, you're going to get, let's see, price floor above quantity demanded above quantity supplied. So yeah, quantity supplied above quantity demanded, you actually get a surplus.
I'm
here.
seeing all the,
But it's
I'm seeing all the
unused.
equations and white
unpurchased.
above your head.
Yeah.
Well, and this also feeds into, you mentioned BlackRock, buying up rental properties. This is an incentive for them to do that too, because they know that the federal government is guaranteeing the rent income from that.
Yeah, they don't actually have to fill it up. They don't have to rent it out. They can get the voucher, right? Is that how that voucher works?
No, it's you put people in there. So
put people in there, okay,
yeah,
and you'll
so
be
it's
compensated
people that are in the program,
$1,182. Got it.
Those are the only people you're going to want to rent to.
But yeah, I mean, it's a guaranteed win. Why wouldn't you do it? Of course they do it.
So, we talk about how less government is the solution to these housing problems. You can imagine the city of Madison is going in the opposite direction. And they've got their plan to fix this is the Housing Strategy Committee. They've got their 2021 housing initiative that they're working through. Let's see, we should just talk about these all together. I got a short list here. There's a lot more on the website that you can visit if you want to really go in depth, because everything done in Madison is done by committees. So committees generate lots of ideas, but these are some of the ones that were kind of at the top of the list. 400 new affordable rental units per year. Mike, you already kind of mentioned your thoughts on that. That's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
Let's see. They say affordable rent is 30% of monthly income, including utilities. We already touched on that. Co-housing. This is one of their concepts. Rebecca, you live in the dorms. Mm-hmm. You're doing co-housing. How do you share you've got your bedroom that you probably share with a roommate, and you got all your other shared spaces. How do you like that?
Personally, not a fan. I lived in an apartment last year when I was in Germany, and even with sharing that space with 5 other people, it was much better than having one floor of 25 people, one set of bathrooms. Yeah.
You're still young. I mean, you're a student. You kind of expect these kind of living conditions. How would you like to be in your 30s, 40s, or older doing this?
I can't imagine.
All right, so let's see. They got
and this co-housing thing, Bill. Are they going to mandate this?
I have a. They can't force you to live anywhere, but I mean, you're talking about different types of housing. I kind of get the impression that they're going to explore, be talking to developers like, hey, let's build a dormitory-style housing block here. So, it'd all be voluntary, but I mean, when you're paying more than 30% of your income for rent, what choice do you have, right?
Yeah, and then this point above, affordable rent is 30% of monthly income includes utilities. That's incredibly optimistic.
Yeah.
Incredibly optimistic.
Well, I always kind of wonder too about these breakdowns of what you should be paying for various things. I think it's you should only be paying 40% for living expenses, and 20% you should be putting towards your retirement, and the rest you should be spending on recreation. It's like
yeah, I have a hypothesis about this. The percentage I've heard is 30%.
Okay, you've
right?
seen these. You've seen these. Okay.
But my hypothesis is that that's just something that real estate agents made up during the housing boom in order to convince low-income, first-time home buyers that putting 30% of your income, down on a house, or having your mortgage payments be 30% of your gross income is actually totally normal. No, it's not. And as I've heard it too, that's 30% of your gross income, not 30% of your net income after tax.
Yeah.
So to including utilities alongside that, no way. No way.
All right. We've got explore what can be done to encourage quote unquote overhoused homeowners to downsize to free up existing housing stock in the Madison market. Overhoused, what does this mean? So you raised your family in your home, kids are off college, getting married, you got 2 spare bedrooms, you're overhoused. Empty nesters, you are overhoused. The city of Madison wants to figure out how to get you the heck out of that house.
Yep.
What kind of options would they explore for this? How would they encourage people to leave?
So I don't know if it's legal right now. It probably isn't. But I mean, you can always figure out, you figure out ways to adjust the taxes, to penalize people for, maybe you say there should be this amount of square footage per person. You've got 2 people living in this house. You've got 800 square feet of excess space, which we are going to tax at a higher rate. So I mean that's how I think you could do it. I mean, Mike, do you have any theories on how you would do it if you were a communist?
What do you mean if I were a communist? Yeah, what would I do? I suppose you would offer some sort of tax write-off to these people when they sell their homes.
No, that's not what a communist does. That's what a free market person does.
Well, this is what,
not even free market. Like, I guess somebody on the right
This is
who
what-
is for central government is how they would do it.
But that's what our communists do here in the U.S.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point.
If our communists were in the Soviet Union, yeah, they'd do it differently. But our communists would do that, I think.
I got the stick,
right?
you got the carrot, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they would do something along those lines, is just, give them, I don't know, a flat rate or percentage rate cut to this capital gains income that they would get from selling their house, something along those lines.
Or, I guess along the lines too is maybe you don't penalize people for having empty space in their house, but you reward them for meeting your, one person, 200 square foot per person.
Yeah. I mean, a couple things you could do. Zoning is responsible for this phenomenon of overhousing in the first place. Lots of people who might want to, rent out a spare bedroom or rent out their basement aren't allowed to, because zoning ordinances, not only do they establish all the things that we talked about, but they also place restrictions on the maximum number of unrelated people that can live in a house.
I never realized that.
Yeah, so in Lake Geneva, it's fairly reasonable, I guess. But why do they care to begin with? I don't know.
No borders.
But the maximum number of unrelated people that can live in a single-family house is 3. Right? Well,
I don't think that would work for Forrest Gump.
Right. Yeah. So, like, imagine this, right? You and your wife, you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, okay, and you just use 1 bedroom, and you have 2 bedrooms, okay. You want to rent out one of the bedrooms to a couple that are, new college graduates.
Yeah.
They're not related, so you can't rent out the 3rd room because now you have 3 unrelated people.
Oh.
If they were married, that'd be a different story because now they're related.
Wow.
But as soon as you have 2 tenants,
Yeah.
then you're at your max.
Well, I mean, hey, there's some big old houses out there too.
Yes.
I
yes,
mean,
there are.
there are homes out there with
Yeah.
6 bedrooms.
And another way that zoning is responsible for overhousing is when you have these minimum lot sizes. And in Lake Geneva, it's ridiculous. It's like 10,000 square feet, 15,000 square foot minimums. You incentivize developers to use as much of that land as possible, right? Because the property, the land, is a fixed cost that's not going away. You have to buy it no matter what. Okay? So how do you get the best bang for your buck? You don't want to build a 1,000 square foot house on a 10,000 square foot lot. You want to build a 2,000 square or 3,000 square foot house, right?
Well, if I'm the government, that's great too, because I'm getting more property taxes out of that too.
Right,
You're
yeah.
increasing my levy limit.
Yeah. So you through zoning, through minimum lot sizes, you're incentivizing bigger houses on lots, and then you're restricting the number of people that can live in them. So you end up with overhousing.
Funny how that works. Yeah, there's a couple, other ideas from Madison that you might be on board with, Michael. Explore infill opportunities for low-density residential that results in net gain of units, including lot subdivision and single-lot redevelopment.
Sounds great.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what. We were going, you and I, we were looking through, what lot sizes are in the city of Madison. They are not big.
No.
These are small lots. If you put two houses on one of these lots, you've got two houses that are pressed up against each other. You're going to have some like third world looking city stuff going on in Madison if you try to start dividing up those lots into multiple units.
Yeah, and they'd have to do so much work just to. They do allow lot subdivision already, right? Like you can split lots conditionally.
Yeah.
I think you.
I'm sure it's possible.
Yeah.
That's kind of the case everywhere.
But if they are going to do something like that writ large, they have to change the entire zoning code. Because what are you going to do about all those setbacks, right?
Yeah.
So say I have a 3,000 square foot lot, right, that has one house on it, and I want to split it into two, but I have to have a side setback of 15 feet for both lots. So that's 30 feet of dead face in between these two houses, which are going to be tiny because they have houses on the other sides. They have to be 50 feet from those, but they have to be 30 feet from the street, and they have to be 10 feet from the back. So you just shrink that down. You have to get rid of these setbacks
It's going to look
if you want to do that.
Wow, it is going to be claustrophobic if they go in this city if they go along with that. Anyway, explore partnerships for manufactured and modular homes to be created in Madison. So they want more trailer parks in Madison. So, I guess that takes better makes better use of not a lot of land.
Yeah, there are crazy zoning regulations imposed on mobile home parks. By the way, they are insane. As you can imagine, they hate mobile home parks. They hate trailer parks. Lake Geneva, I don't think even allows them at all.
Yeah.
But mobile home parks, you'll find like one in every city, right? And it's just out of necessity because, they got a bunch of factory workers or warehouse workers who can't afford anything else, and no developer wants to come in and build a big apartment complex for, 60 people, 10% of whom will be laid off and, not be able to pay their rent, every year or something like that.
I've known some poor guys in the National Guard over the years that have lived in trailer parks. It is not a great solution if you don't have a lot of money, because you don't get to just plop your trailer park down, your trailer home down, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's back then. We're going back almost 10 years now. $600 a month to rent the pad to put your trailer on.
Yeah.
You got to pay all the utility hookup fees and all that. This stuff adds up fast, and suddenly it's like, geez, you might be better off just getting a 2-bedroom apartment somewhere.
Yeah, it depends where you are. So when I was in Miami, my roommate's mom lived in Miami for a little while. They had a trailer, and they moved from California. They just decided to live in Miami with us for a few months before they moved to the East Coast. So they found a trailer park. Their pad was $600 a month, but all utilities, including internet, included.
Oh.
Pretty good deal.
Well, but that's just for the pad,
Pretty
though.
good
You
deal.
still got to pay the loan for the trailer itself.
Yeah, they were squared away. On
Yeah,
that.
they were doing okay, but
Yeah, but this lot subdivision, cool. Rework your entire zoning code if you want to make that possible. Single lot redevelopment. Another thing too that is prevented is what's called accessory dwelling units. So this is how amenable people are to living in small spaces. You can buy a shed from Home Depot for $1,000, like a 10 by 10, right? $1,000, plop it down in your backyard. You can fit a full-size fridge. You can,
Tiny
put a
home.
stove in there,
Yeah.
right? You can put a futon couch, right? You can, whatever, hook up an outdoor shower, whatever you want to do, right? Someone could live in that, okay? Some little college kid or whatever. Can't do that. Not allowed. Not allowed. Why not? It's 100 square feet. It's a shed.
Yeah.
I was going to put the shed there anyway. The shed is there anyway. I'm allowed to have a shed, but you can't have a person living there. So these are little things that, could be done
Well,
to help, but
you know,
they
and-
don't even consider it because we can't have people living in sheds. How would that look? What are you talking about? These people are living on the streets right now.
Well, you're also dealing with Madison where it's snitch culture. So I mean, there's some communities out there that I know of where if you were to do that, even if it was against the code, nobody's saying a word. Nobody cares.
Oh, for sure.
In Madison,
Yeah.
you're gonna have 5 neighbors calling the cops on you. They hate the cops, but they love to snitch.
Yes, they do. Yeah. Bunch of nerds, little rats.
All right, so I've got, we're talking about overhousing, we're talking about co-housing. I got to play this clip because when I first started reading this, I was thinking about this old movie, Dr. Zhivago. And in this clip, Dr. Zhivago, he was a doctor in Moscow before World War I. He goes off to fight the war. He comes back. The communists took over. And this is what he finds in his home when he gets back.
Comrade Caprugina?
Welcome.
It is not for you to welcome us, comrade.
Comrade Caprugina is the chairman of the residence committee.
There was living space for 13 families in this one house.
Yes. Yes, this is a better arrangement, comrades. More just.
So co-housing and overhousing, I love seeing these concepts. You couldn't find a better example, I don't think. So, all right. To wrap things up here, hey, there was a lot of news, as I mentioned, that's happened over the past couple of weeks. Act 10 got overturned the other day. Huge deal. We're going to go in depth about that in our next podcast. MacIver's reporting this extensively. We were there every day as that law was getting passed in the Capitol. So we've got unique perspective on this. By our math, Wisconsin taxpayers have saved $31 billion over the past 13 years because of this law. The other thing that we're going to be talking about is the Wisconsin tax burden. A study came out that says that 9.9% of Wisconsin personal income goes to state and local taxes. That would be the 35th highest in the country. Study threw that out as a great triumph. Politicians were high-fiving. We took a closer look at those numbers, and it's nothing to be jumping up and down about, if you ask us. We still got a lot of work to do in this state. But hey, that's all we got for the MacIver report this week. I'm Bill Smolsky. As always, I was joined by
Michael Lucas.
And Rebecca Drager.
And we'll all see you again next time for the MacIver report when we talk about Act 10 and the tax burden. Thank you very much.